Title: The Watchers in the Fog. The road twisted through the dense forest like a serpent, its cracked asphalt barely visible beneath a creeping fog. Owen gripped the wheel tighter, his knuckles pale in the dim glow of his dashboard. The map app on his phone had long since lost signal, leaving him with nothing but the old highway and the thickening mist. He had been driving for hours, trying to reach his sister's cabin deep in the northern wilderness. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway, a place to clear his head after the bitter end of his marriage. But as the mist swallowed the last traces of civilization behind him, an unsettling feeling settled in his chest. The road signs had grown unfamiliar, and then the headlights flickered. A static buzzed through his radio, even though it had been off the whole time. Owen frowned and reached out to adjust the dial, but the sound only grew louder, crackling with distorted voices. A woman's whisper wove through the static. "Turn around." Owen's breath hitched. He pulled his hand back as if burned and jabbed the power button, silencing the noise. His pulse thundered in his ears. Just the radio malfunctioning, he told himself. Old highways, weird signals. It was nothing. But then his headlights failed completely. Panic surged through him. He slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the damp road. The world plunged into darkness. The fog outside was nearly impenetrable, wrapping around the car like a living thing. He turned the ignition off and on, but the headlights refused to respond. A flicker of movement in the rearview mirror made his stomach drop. He wasn't alone. A shadow stood just beyond the trunk of his car, obscured by the fog. Too tall, too still. Owen's fingers trembled as he reached for his phone. The screen was dark. Dead. The static returned. It poured from the speakers in a relentless tide of distortion. The whispering woman's voice tangled in the noise. "Run." Then something slammed into the car. Owen barely had time to react before his vehicle jolted, its frame groaning under the impact. His breath came in ragged gasps. Another blow. The car lurched sideways as if something was trying to tip it over. That was all it took. Owen threw open the door and stumbled into the fog, his shoes skidding against wet pavement. The cold air sank into his bones, thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. He ran without direction, without thought, just away from the thing behind him. But the fog was not empty. As he sprinted, dark shapes flickered at the edges of his vision. They moved through the mist, shifting in and out of focus. Some crawled low to the ground. Others stood impossibly tall, their limbs elongated and wrong. Whispers curled through the trees, never rising above a murmur, but always present, always reaching. Owen stumbled, his lungs burning. His mind screamed for logic, for explanation, but there was none. Only fear. Only the watchers in the fog, waiting, moving closer. And then he saw it. A cabin, its porch light flickering in the haze. Salvation. He forced his legs to keep moving, nearly collapsing against the door as he pounded on it. "Help! Please, open up!" A pause. Then, mercifully, the door creaked open. A woman stood in the doorway, her expression wary but concerned. She was in her late 30s, her dark hair pulled into a loose braid, her eyes sharp and calculating. "Get inside. Now." Owen didn't hesitate. He staggered in and she slammed the door behind him, locking it with 3 heavy bolts. "You shouldn't have stopped," she said quietly. Her eyes flickered to the window, where the fog pressed against the glass like a hungry thing. "They know you're here now." The whispering never stopped, and neither did the knocking. The pounding on the cabin walls was erratic, coming from every direction at once. Something scraped against the wood, slow and deliberate, as if testing its strength. Owen's breath came fast and shallow. "Who are they?" he asked. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached for an old rifle propped against the wall. "Not who. What? They don't have names anymore. They were people once, but the fog takes everything." A sharp knock came from the window, and Owen turned just in time to see a hand press against the glass. No, not a hand, something close, but wrong. The fingers were too long, the joints reversed, the skin stretched too thin. The whispering grew louder. The woman raised the rifle, her hands steady despite the horror outside. "Stay away from the windows, don't answer the voices, and whatever you do, don't let them in." Owen's heart pounded. "How do we stop them?" The woman exhaled slowly, her expression grim. "We don't. We survive until dawn." The whispering grew more insistent. Now the voices called out names. Some Owen recognized, others he didn't. Some begged, others commanded. The worst part was how real they sounded, like echoes of people trapped in the mist. Then, from the back of the cabin, a loud creak. Owen turned sharply, his breath catching. The woman tensed, raising the rifle. "They're not just outside," she whispered. Something got in. A scraping sound. Then another knock, this time against the inside of the hallway door. Owen clenched his jaw. "That's not possible. We locked everything. We put down salt." The woman's grip tightened on the rifle. "They're getting smarter." Another creak. A shadow stretched across the floor, growing longer, distorted. The whispering turned into a low, guttural growl. Then the hallway door burst open. A figure stood there, its shape shifting like mist, tall and grotesque. Its head was wrong, elongated, eyes too deep and hollow. It let out a sharp, rattling breath as it took a slow step forward. Owen grabbed a fire poker from the hearth, his pulse hammering. The woman fired the rifle. The creature staggered but did not fall. Then it spoke. "Owen, we've been waiting for you." The voice was his sister's. Cold terror crawled through Owen's veins. The thing took another step, the whispering rising all around them, a cacophony of voices speaking in unison. The fog outside pulsed against the windows, pressing closer. The woman grabbed Owen's arm. "We need to run, now." Owen hesitated, his mind screaming for an explanation. But there was no time. The thing lunged. They ran. They barely made it out of the cabin before the walls began to groan, bending inward as if the house itself were being swallowed by the mist. Owen followed the woman, heart pounding, as they sprinted into the fog-shrouded forest. "Where are we going?" he gasped. "There's an old bunker in the hills. It's the only place they can't reach." The trees around them pulsed with movement, figures shifting, their hollow eyes watching. Owen felt his skin crawl as the whispering voices grew louder, calling his name in a sickening chorus. Then the ground trembled. Something massive stirred in the fog ahead. The woman grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward a barely visible trail. "Run faster," she hissed, and behind them, the forest came alive.